not the same list of breakdown,
Yeah,
that's.
that's what's throwing me off,
Needless to
because
say,
it's titled different.
there are categories that we didn't have several years ago that we're looking to add and charge services. Again, the intent is to be consistent with neighboring communities, and I know that Chief Harris did do an analysis of Linfield and some of the other neighboring communities, and also consistent with the rates that Medicare charges or Medicare pays for. You have to remain consistent with those two numbers.
Yeah, I just want to be clear, I'm not opposed to doing this, but thank you. I was looking and I couldn't compare them because it's not the same. But let me ask you this, Mr. Belliconis, if I can. On the backside, the Advanced Life Support Emergency, which now is 566.42. Where is that on the front, I guess I'll call it? Do you know?
That would be the ALS transport rate of $750, and the ALS 2 would be $1,000, and that compares to the current rate of $619.81.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
819.
Okay. Now I guess because so this does open the door to the question I had when I wrote my notes. Do we get that money, or does the ALS company who comes into town get that money? Yeah, but how much do we pay? You know what I mean? I mean, what?
The ALS company.
Yeah, I don't want to be just necessarily raising money for an outside company.
Yeah, well, one is that you've got to, that rate's got to exceed the rate that we do for the standard EMT. And we have been talking about going to ALS. We're
Right.
obviously not going to do it this year. But
Right.
I would think that you would want the rates to be consistent. I guess what's more important to me is that these rates are commensurate with what other communities are charging, A, and B, are mostly fit the typical insurance policies that our citizens have, medical insurance policies.
It's covered. To get to Selectman Vino's question, we share a portion of that total fee. So some of it is paid to the ALS company, and the town does receive a portion of that
I
fee.
don't mean to put you on the spot, please. I mean, do you know what that portion is? I mean, are we getting like 10% and they're getting 90?
I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to check into it. I just don't
Because
know.
it is fairly significant. I mean, the increases are over $200.
Sure.
You know, again, I'm not opposed to doing it, but I just, you know, is this money we're gonna get, or is this money the outside firm is going to get?
I'm sorry, I don't have more definite information.
I know, and, okay.
Any other questions?
It just appears that a few months ago, my son Kevin had the occasion of having a ride in the ambulance, and it was an ALS thing, and it looks pretty close to the charges that were incurred. These charges that are being proposed are very similar to the charges that were incurred when he had his ride in the ambulance. My guess is, speaking with the chief earlier, is that they're just doing it commensurate with whatever the insurance companies are willing to reimburse. They're not looking to charge any more than what the insurance companies are willing to reimburse. And again, usually when we get to the situation where insurance companies didn't cover it, then the chief and the town administrator bring to us the charge-offs. Right. We write them off. So I don't have a problem. And again, this was part of our budget proposals as far as an area to increase revenues in order to balance the budget. So I would be in support.
And the rates that were being proposed, the question was asked to the town administrator back then, whether or not these fit the norm, and the answer was that they did. So with that, any other questions or discussion? No. Michael?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the ambulance rate adjustment as proposed by the Fire Chief Richard Harris in his memorandum dated January 29, 2008.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Harris, seconded by Mr. O'Leary. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Could I just ask something? Mr. Belliconis, when you have a chance, would it be possible if we could get that answer, though, as to what percentage of that rate increase I'm just curious as to what percentage of that we're gonna actually get. Because it's a nice increase, and I would hope we're gonna get it all, but I know we're not.
We all set?
Yep.
Next item on our agenda is the town administrator's agreement. For those that are listening this evening, Mr. Belaconis' contract, his initial contract, which I think started in August 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, is coming to an end, and this is a renewed 3-year contract that we'll be voting on this evening. The process to which the board took to come to an agreement was first receiving some proposals from Mr. Belaconis. The board looked at those proposals, discussed them in executive session, and came to essentially a counter proposal, and the chair and vice chair met with Mr. Belaconis and discussed those, and agreement was reached with Mr. Belaconis, and at this point it's the board's responsibility to approve and sign the contract. I take it Mr. Belaconis he had initialed the copy that Phil and I discussed with him. With respect to the contract as compared to the initial contract, there's a change to the salary schedule, of course. In the initial contract, there was a 2% bonus that could be awarded by the board based on performance, of which Mr. Belaconis has received the full 2% in the past 2 years, and most likely based on his performance. I don't want to speak for the board yet because we're in the process of that review. Is most likely to get that same percentage this coming year. We have removed the 2% bonus from this new contract. And in place, we've made a salary adjustment to bring Mr. Belaconis up to a salary which is commensurate with other town administrators in the area, and it gets him to a point where at least he's on a par with several of his department heads. Beyond that, we've made a small adjustment to his auto expense, and that's based on, obviously, the cost of fuel has gone up substantially since we initiated this first contract, and we've added a week's vacation beginning, I believe, in the 3rd year of this contract. Those are the substantive changes. Other than that, the contract remains unchanged. The contract language remains unchanged. Comments, discussion? Mr. Vino?
Yes, I'd just like to say I think Mr. Belaconis has done an outstanding job in the relatively short time he's been here. North Reading is a nice little bedroom community, very, very busy. It's a very good community, very busy, and Mr. Belaconis has fit right in. We've probably gone through one of the toughest budget years we've ever had, and I know that Mr. Belaconis spent hours and hours and nights and weekends just working on these budgets, and he just did an outstanding job. And I know I was on the search committee looking for Mr. Belaconis, and he was the best we could find then, and I still think he's the best we could get right now.
Mr. Gardino?
Thank you. I want to agree with Joe, about what the town administrator has done. I think you've changed the culture here in Town Hall and substantially, and I think the town is lucky to have you. I think we've got a contract here that's consistent with what other area town administrators are making, and also consistent with the pay scale we have in town for our other department heads. So all in all, I think it's a win-win contract for both the town and for the town administrator. But I would like to say to you that certainly working with you has been a great pleasure of mine. I've enjoyed it. I think the town is extremely lucky to have someone like you here.
What
I'd also like to
Mr.
agree
Harris?
with Mr. Tardino and Mr. Fino, especially during the budget season. I know got ticked off a couple of times when we asked him to do some things on pretty short notice, and he pulled through and came through for us and, when we needed him in a crunch. So I think Greg's done a great job.
Respectfully disagreed sometimes.
Exactly.
Nothing wrong with that.
No,
It's okay.
We want. Steve?
Mr. Chairman. Again, Greg, I'm happy that you're willing to stay on for another 3 years. Again, when you came in, it wasn't a very easy time either. We had some
That's right.
significant changeover in department heads, and we were in a general state of turmoil there for a little while. In addition to that, we new fire chief, new police chief, fire chief twice, and all through all of that along, and then the finance department with the issues that we've had there, handled them extremely well. And again, I've sat here off and on since 1988, and it's been a pleasure to work with, and challenge at times, which is great. And I think it's a good thing. I think you've been extremely professional, and you've handled it very well, and I'm pleased that we could come to an agreement and have you for another 3 years. Thank you.
Motion?
Let me please make a comment.
I'm sorry. Good, Bob, you
I
can talk.
usually wait for everybody else.
You're right.
I've served as chair for the 3 years that Greg has been here, and I served in my freshman year as a member of the search committee. And it's really been a pleasure to find someone that you can work with on a professional level. You can deal with issues, always accessible. And for those that don't know, I typically meet with Greg as chair Wednesday mornings, and we usually hash out issues and try to keep things moving so that the goals that both he has set and the board has set are attainable. And this has been a very, very stressful year with a lot of issues, and we've gotten through it. And we've gotten through it because of the professionalism that Greg has provided. Also, what hasn't been mentioned is, when Greg came on, one of the things that he had to do almost off the get-go was to begin negotiations with our labor unions, which took up a substantial amount of time, and he was clearly tested during that period. A new guy on the block, and he's come through that with a great level of professionalism. And I'm very glad that you're here and you've agreed to continue in the employment of North Reading as town administrator. With that, I will call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the town administrator's employment agreement for the period of July 1st, 2008 to June 30th, 2011.
Motion made by Mr. Harris, seconded by Mr. O'Leary. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. We need to go through a signing of this.
Very
thing, right?
grateful and appreciative of your action. Thank you. And it has been a difficult time, but we are a very busy little town.
Yes, we are.
We are.
By the way, I didn't mention to the board, but I had town council review it. There were a couple of minor word changes in 2 paragraphs.
And if you remember, Mr. Valiakonis, I warned you of that when we were doing the search.
I do remember that, our interview down in room 5.
Yeah.
Remember that very well.
Hmm?
That's the other way there, Bob.
It's 2 copies, right?
2.
You want one too?
Why don't we put the date on there too?
Yeah, okay.
Joe? Today is the
28th.
28th.
Is it April 20th?